As I've said before on the program, this conflict in the Middle East has taken, I guess, the international focus and media focus somewhat off the war that continues to rage in the Ukraine, a war of defence for the Ukrainians who were invaded by an expansionist Russia. And the international community has, to a certain extent, come to the aid of the Ukrainians, but they're not the trendy war anymore, are they? They're not where the focus is. They're not where the carrier battle groups are, but the suffering for the people of Ukraine being invaded by the Russians continues. And many New Zealanders have gone there to help. And some New Zealanders have lost their lives by helping in humanitarian and military roles. And one New Zealander helping out is philanthropist, Tauranga philanthropist, terrible word that, Tenby Powell, who's already given a whole lot of ambulances and got a whole lot of ambulances delivered to Ukraine. But there is a new initiative because as we come into the summer months here, they head into the winter months in Ukraine, and that's a cold part of the word. Tenby joins us now, not from Ukraine, but from Tauranga. Tenby, mate, how are you? Nice to talk to you again.
Good morning, Sean. Thank you very much. Good to talk to you too.
All right. What is the new initiative? The ambulances are there and doing their bit. What's next?
Yep, the ambulances are there. In fact, I've just been trading messages coincidentally this morning with the wonderful Canadian nurse who runs Manaki, which is our Kiwi Care outreach ambulance. And she's way out east, behind the terrible conflict that continues to rage around Bakhmut. So she's in that area helping out. So that's great. So that outreach program is going to be working really well. And she's an incredible woman, an ex-captain in the Canadian Army. So she's going to do some great things across time there. But the new initiative, which is one that we trialled last year, in fact, is making water heaters and wood-burning stoves from old electrical water cylinders, as we would describe them here in New Zealand, which is
called repurposing, isn't it?
Repurposing. We strip these things down, the old electrical things, take all that stuff and get to off them and get to the core tank. There's a steel tank inside, and then refabricate them in various ways, various shapes, contingent on how big those original cylinders were, and we get them out to families and communities and even frontline medical units that lack power, generated power, for heating, obviously, and also for getting water up to a pretty hot temperature. And as many described, many of the families who received these last year said they were a lifesaver.
All right. How many do you reckon? It's always good to set a target. Tenby, how many of these things do you want to get to Ukraine?
We did a couple of hundred, but over that last year as a trial, and they were so successful that we've had requests for 1,200. We had requests for 1,000, but that's already gone to 1,200 as we knew. And look, we could be in the thousands. We don't have the capacity to manufacture or refabricate that many. We put a call out via social media. There's some very high-profile Ukrainians, as you can imagine, asking for old electrical water cylinders, and they have poured in literally from all over Ukraine. You know, we don't want them from New Zealand or anywhere else. We just couldn't.
So you're running a little production facility in Ukraine?
We are. We've got about 6 fabricators that make these things, and we do them at, obviously, get them done at cost. There's a small wages component for these people so they can live, and then we donate them to families, and we try and triage the need as much as we can, Sean, based on those who are in the greatest of need, and they go to areas where Russians have done, and we anticipate will continue to target infrastructure, particularly power and water.
So people have got to be self-sufficient because they're taking out power grids, aren't they? And they're taking out power stations and dams and the whole lot.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, part of the water includes delivery of water because the water is either non-existent or it's completely contaminated.
Hey, Tenby, what is your feeling about things that are going on there? It has gone off the front page to a certain extent. And there is a narrative, and I'm not sure because I'm not a military analyst, and I think, finding the truth in these situations is hard, that somehow the war has kind of stalled into a stalemate, a kind of First World War, everyone's entrenched and the lines aren't moving anywhere situation.
Yeah, look, firstly, it's not quite like that. The Ukrainians, certainly the counter-offensive, is slowing down. But what I think the best way of looking at this, Sean, is, we, the world, have failed Ukraine in probably two of the key principles of war. There's a number of principles of war, but two of them that we have absolutely failed Ukraine on are concentration of effort and maintenance of the momentum. Concentration of effort is applying firepower where it's needed, and being able to continue to do so in a way that, enables them to gain ground in this case. And then maintenance of the momentum is all around the incredible momentum they had around, November last year with the counteroffensive. We, because of not giving them the quantity and the type of, say, main battle tanks, for example, and most particularly the F-16s for close air support, we failed them incredibly. Notwithstanding that, I think it's really important to understand the context of this. Gaza has absolutely taken the front page on this, and as you quite rightly said in the intro, the American battle groups have moved in there in and around that coastline. And as horrific as the Hamas attack was, and, I served in that area in South Lebanon 20 years ago in uniform, and, very sadly, it's terrible to see, nearly quarter of a century later that this is continuing. Gaza, though, and this is purely a comment on scale, not on atrocity, because the same atrocities that are happening in Gaza continue to happen in Ukraine. Hospitals are bombed, children still die, civilians are killed. Gaza, from a purely an area and land size, is 45 square kilometres. This is the entirety of Gaza, one of the most, as we know, densely populated areas in the world. But this is an area slightly bigger than Pukekohe, for example. Ukraine still occupies 60% of the South Island of New Zealand. At one stage, the Ukrainian war was over 160,000 kilometres, which was much bigger than the South Island. After the counter-offensive, it's still about 86,500 square kilometres, which is about 60% of the South Island, with a 1,000-kilometre front line. So we are talking an incredibly different scale. This is the biggest war on the European continent since World War II, and its scale is just overwhelming. So the Ukrainians, and the reason I've gone to some length to talk about the geography of this, is that the Ukrainians are doing exceptionally well in the circumstances. The circumstances are huge. I believe we failed them in those two principles of war, and we need to address that.
Tenby, look, just finally, and look, once again, thank you for all the great work you've been doing. This latest initiative for the, this conversion, this recycling into usable heaters and the like in Ukraine. If people want to help, if they want to donate, where should they go?
Well, that's amazing. I mean, we use the Give a Little platform, the crowdsourcing platform here in New Zealand. I've started a new Give a Little page called Vital Winter Warmth for Ukraine with Love from New Zealand. The last bit really is about the fact that we put a plaque on every stove or water heater that simply says "With Love from New Zealand." It's a small brass plaque with a small black map of New Zealand. So, New Zealand is getting well known in Ukraine now, and you quite rightly pointed out the great service of many New Zealanders, and tragically the 3 deaths of those that have served there. And, despite the fact that we're almost polar opposite to Ukraine, a world away, literally, we are getting well known and highly respected by the Ukrainians.